All right, I see the room starting to fill up, so I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our weekly 30-minute workshop here at Variphy. Thanks for joining us. My name is Brian McKay, Systems Engineer here at Variphy, and I'll be your host for today's session, where we are going to be talking about call scenarios and what they mean. Here to walk us through it, we have Mr. Jim Schultens, a fellow system engineer here at Variphy. How are you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing great. How are you, Brian?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good.
Nice to have some good weather after all the rain we had here in California, so I'm enjoying the sunshine coming in the window here. Fun fact, we reached a new milestone at Verify Support here in that we took our 10,000th support ticket yesterday, and Jim was the one who caught the lucky ticket, so his prize is to panel this webinar. Congratulations.
Wait a minute. It's supposed to be cash.
All right. Sorry, no choice. They can't turn this price down. So please note that these webinars are always recorded and posted within 24 hours. So if you have to leave early or just want to be able to review it again at your own pace, just check the webinars page on our website for all past and upcoming sessions. So let's go ahead and get started here. First, we'll start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. Then we'll jump into a live demo where Jim's going to guide us through the various call scenario definitions and examples. We'll pause for some Q&A after that. During the demo, if you have any questions, please make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right of the screen. And after the Q&A, we'll reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card, so hang around to see if you won. Let's do a quick overview of Variphy. We are the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. Deployable either on-prem or as a hosted cloud solution, we provide industry-leading CDR reporting and call analytics, as well as customizable dashboards and widgets, UCCX reporting, remote phone control, change management reports, Cisco Cube CDR, and with the newly released version 13.1, which just came out last week, we now offer Zoom phone reports and dashboards as well. If you have any questions on any of our features or have any interest in evaluating some of our new features, please contact us at support@verify.com or reach out to your account manager for more info. One more thing before we kick this off. For an additional fee, Verify offers an enhanced consulting service to our customers. Verify's support engineer team will engage with you on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, report building and management, dashboard configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you a dedicated Verify support engineer to do the heavy lifting, giving you a stress-free, hands-off experience. For more information, please contact us, and we'd be glad to speak more in depth about pricing and terms of service for our enhanced consulting services. All right, let's go ahead and get into the wild here. I'm going to pass this over to Jim. I'm going to make you presenter.
All right. Thank you for joining us in another weekly Wednesday workshop, as my widget here shows. As Brian said, we're going to talk about different call scenarios. So what I'm going to point your attention to first is we've got a great knowledge base article. If you're not familiar with our knowledge base articles, I encourage you to take a look at those. If you go to verify.com and support, we've got a whole section of knowledge base articles here. So I'm going to do a search for scenario. If I could type it right. And it comes up right away here. So I'm going to look at that article, and this goes through basically all of our call scenarios. I'm not going to go through each one of these. I know it's a long list. We're just going to focus on the first few down here up until touch on forwarded calls. But I'm just going to spend most of my time on these. So if you scroll down a little bit further here, it goes through these and gives you a brief description of what those scenarios are. So for instance, total calls, if you're doing a search in Verify and reporting or in widgets, total calls are basically all the calls for a specified search set and being the combination of connected and we'll get into connected and not connected calls in a second and show you actual examples. So what is a connected call? Connected call, where a connection was established regardless of duration, and it's also a combination of answered and voicemail. Then we go on to not connected calls, basically just the opposite, where a connection was not established. meaning we didn't get a connect time in the CDR data. Abandoned calls are calls that are not connected, and the calling party hung up the phone before a successful connection was established. Abandon off hook, this is more for, I consider it outbound calls, so calls placed where no digits were dialed and the person just got distracted or whatever and hung up. We don't see too many of these. I don't think I have any examples. Then moving on to answered calls. What's an answered call? It's a call that's connected and not answered by a voicemail port or device. And we'll get to voicemail calls in our second. Forwarded calls, I'm not going to touch on that much today, but basically it's a connected call and where the original call party and final call party differ. Meaning normal call where Brian calls in, calls me, we connect. My extension is both the original and final call party. If those were different, then I would have my phone forwarded. You'd see my extension as original call party, and final call party would be where I have it forwarded. Voicemail calls, calls which are answered by a voicemail port or device, regardless of duration. And you may be asking, what is a voicemail port? We consider by default anything that device name, a terminating device name that starts with Cisco UM as a voicemail port. If yours configuration is a little different, you have a different port or device name for your voicemail ports, we are able to track that as a voicemail call. So if I go into call analytics reporting, go over to config, and you'll see the CDR devices here. Once I click on that, this will normally be blank unless you've added some already. This being my lab or our demo lab, we do have some already defined in there. So for instance, if I was going to add a new device, say it has a device name of Jim's device, and I want that to be considered voicemail, I would toggle this. Say it's for voicemail, save call stream capacity. That's more for call capacity and utilization. Must be a positive number if I read. So you see my Jim's device, and it is for voicemail is set to true. I'm going to go ahead and delete that so I don't mess anybody up. So that's just kind of a high-level overview of what we consider these different call scenarios. We'll go through some of these and get more involved in some reports. So I'm going to run this report. I've got some reports already configured here. I'm going to go with this call scenarios report, and this is pretty basic report here. Search set, I'm looking for anything that either has a calling party, original or final with 15XX, and I'm not doing any grouping, and I've got some stats that we're going to see. I'm going to turn on, have call history details along with cradle duration. So if I run this report, and I'm going to run it for the last 7 days. This loads. Should already have my previous 7 days. I would encourage you, if you've got details in a lot of columns, run HTML or Excel. PDF tends to cut off columns. I'm sure you've heard us say that before, but just wanted to stress that. So let's go ahead and give this guy a run, and we'll see. So let's zoom in so you can see it here. So out of those calls, anything containing 15XX, we've got 360 total calls. Like I said, the total calls is comprised of connected calls, which is 320, and not connected calls, which is 40. So 320 and 40 equals our 360. So out of these connected calls, I've got some that are answered and some that went to voicemail. So this 272 and 48 comprise my connected calls of 320. Then we go over to our not connected calls. You'll notice that's a 40. and abandoned, I've got 20. So I've got 20 calls that I'm not really showing. So you may be asking what those are. And we'll go through and take a look at some of those in our details here. So the thing I'm going to focus on, since it's not connected means we didn't get a date time connect in the CDR. So I've got date time origination, date time connect, and date time termination shown here. So it's easy to point out the ones that are not connected at a blank connect time. This one happens to be abandoned. Do want to point out this call scenarios type, very helpful in troubleshooting. Gives you an idea of what we're considering the calls. So like I said, this one's abandoned. Abandoned calls are not connected, zero duration, and normal call clearing in the originating clause code. We use originating and terminating clause code fields quite a bit in troubleshooting to tell us what's going on with that call. So you'll see me refer to these. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, just kind of looking for the not connected here. And I've got one here. It's not abandoned. It's just saying not connected. So why is it not connected? If I look at my originating clause code, I've got unallocated or unassigned number. So something's going on with that. I don't know if it's a one-off or I've got something going on with originating. So I'm going to focus on 1593. So we'll kind of scroll down a little bit more. And we've got a couple other ones abandoned. And here's another non-allocated or unassigned number. So I may have a pattern into. So, focusing on the not connected calls gives me an idea of what's going on or what needs to be looked at. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. There's couple of them further down that I do want to point out another scenario for not connected calls. And here's a good idea, good example here. Not connected, shows not connected in my call scenario types, but I've got call split here. And notice I've also got some related. So I'm going to focus on this guy here, click on the related calls and see what's going on with that. So here we've got our call scenario, which, calling party comes in, calls in, hits 7504, goes to our Unity, probably makes a selection, goes to 77504, a Unity or UCC export, and they talk for 15 seconds or are connected for 15 seconds. And then you'll see the zero duration call here. This is that UCC export transferring the call to 7118. It does connect, but it's the transfer that's indicated by call split in both the originating and terminating clause code. And also I see transferred here. So the call is transferred, the original caller gets connected to 7118. 7118 decides to transfer the call again, but this time in the transfer, it doesn't get connected to 1535. So that's an example where they dial and they hang up right away, but it's still going to connect the original caller to the destination once that call gets, goes through. It's just that the person making the transfer hung up real quick and didn't have a connect. So that's not connected. That's one of those we consider not connected. But the call split tells me it was transferred. It wasn't abandoned because the call went on. And then the call completed after talking for almost 2 minutes. So we'll see those, and those type of transfers and that unallocated number, sorry for your eyes here, scenarios, or you may have some other error codes showing up that'll account for the missing 20 not connected calls. All right. So that's, we get a lot of questions on not connected. What's considered not connected? So, this hopefully sheds some light on it. They are comprised of abandoned, but also there could be some other situations. And I do have a report here. We're going to go to this not connected calls report. So what I'm doing here is kind of focusing on those that are either not abandoned or don't have that call split or the transfer scenario. So on my search set, I'm using the originating and terminating clause code. I'm still filtering on 1500. What I'm saying is not, click on this, it changes from is to is not. So I'm is not call split. I want to filter those out. And I also want to filter originating clause code of normal call clearing, which would be my abandoned. go ahead and run this guy for the same time period. We're kind of focusing on the same 15XX calls. I don't know why that screen is so slow to load, but once we do run the report, it's pretty quick here. So I've got 13 total calls that are not abandoned, not the call split. And I want to look at what's going on with those. I did group this by originating or terminating cause code. And you'll notice I've got no error with 13 calls. Let me blow this up. There you go. And then the unallocated on the side number that we saw in those details here with 12 calls. I'm focusing on this because the no error will show up in one of these, originating or terminating. I want to focus on what's going on. What is happening with this? Is it a problem? Is it something I need to look into? In this case, I think I would need to look into my call manager configuration for this original. Got a couple different numbers, couple different device names. So I may need to look into that, and that's accounting for some of those not connected calls. All right. Another thing we get asked quite a bit is for an IVR situation. Calls coming in my IVR and they're making a button press. They're going somewhere, choosing an option. I'm not going to focus on the option as much. I'm going to focus on the not connected calls there. We can focus on the connected calls as well as non-connected calls. So I'm going to look at the IVR calls here. My search set is anything with going into 7100. I'm not going to do any grouping, just get some stats and again, have history and deep cradle to grave turned on. We'll run this guy and we'll see some different situations for calls coming into that IVR. This guy run. Pull this up for you right away. Too far. All right. So calls coming into 7100, I have 110 calls. And as we scroll through, if it's going to let me. And most of these have related calls. Browser's not liking me.
You're doing the old WebEx shuffle with the mouse there, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah. I make it bigger for everybody to see, and then there it goes.
Yeah, yeah.
I had my whole system crash on me yesterday. Worried about that. But
let's hope that doesn't happen now, or I'm gonna have to finish.
Take it away, Brian. Yeah, so we've got a lot of these that are apologize for that, but if you can squeeze your eyes together and see some of these, you can kind of tell that this is not doesn't have any related calls. What this tells me is the caller came in without making a selection, they hung up. And you can see the call was connected to the IVR, but they just didn't make a selection, so the call ended there. They hung up the call after 3 seconds. So we see a couple of those in there. What I'm more concerned with is when they make a selection and then the call gets abandoned. Screen caught up to me here. I've got a predefined one. I'm sorry for making you all busy here. I want to focus on call center sequence 56 and 57. 56 is, let's see if we can get this bigger for you. There we go. 56 is a normal call, comes into the IVR, makes a choice, makes a choice, gets transferred to this UCX port 119102, and then or that's 119102 is transferring to 7546. The original caller, which matches that, gets connected to 7546 and talks for a minute and a half. So that's a normal call flow through my IVR. What I'm more concerned with is this guy here, where it makes a selection because it gets into the UCC export, but then you notice I've got my call scenario type is abandoned and normal call clearing on the originating cause code, no connection, which fits the bill for abandoned call, and that's what I've got there. So these are a little bit concerning. They made a selection, then they dropped. So can we get an idea of how many times it's happening? Is it a problem? Is it happening with regularity, or is it just a one-time thing? So I do happen to have a report created. Nope, not that report. My copy report, and I'll show you what I did here. I'm going to capture both of these types of calls. So my original search set was just the 7100. If I want to see how many calls are not making a selection, I created a new search set called call with no selection. And that's going to be anything that comes to 7100 and then has a normal call clearing on the originating or terminating cause. Remember, the other ones all had call splits, meaning they were sent off to the IVR. And then what I'm going to do for the other calls that went to the IVR and then disconnected, I'm going to create a cradle to grave search set and call that abandoned after making selection. And in this case, I'm going to focus on call duration of 0 seconds and originating cause code of normal call clearing, meaning the originator of the call hung up once it got into the IVR system. So cancel out of that. We'll run this report and just give you an idea, things you can count other than just calls coming into the IVR. You can expand a little bit and get more granular into what's happening before or after. So my original search set was calls of 7100. I've got my 110 there that we saw in the previous report, but 11 of them are disconnecting before making the selection. I've got a scenario where they're calling in, and either they dial the wrong number or realize they don't want to make a selection. They drop. Then I've got 2 that made a selection and then hung up. It didn't go anywhere else after that. So just a good way of seeing what's going on with your IVR. People hanging up before they make a selection, after, or not. They're all getting serviced by agents and going. So quick way of seeing what's going on with those calls, whether they're all getting connected or some are dropping out before. All right, so that's all I kind of want to focus on reports. I do have some dashboards I want to go through. I know we're running short on time here, but some simple dashboards we'll go through. I kind of do give you the same things at a quick glance instead of running a report. I may want to see, for all calls, there's, instead of focusing on just the 1500 or the 7100, I'm looking at all calls, anything with original call party that has a value. And I've got my stats here. So what that's showing me is, like we first started out, total call count, connected call count, and not connected call count makes up this total call count. And out of my connected call count, answered call count, and how many went to voicemail, being identified by the voicemail port we talked about. And out of the not connected calls, the 1288, 115 were abandoned. So I've got a bunch of calls that didn't, aren't abandoned, that, I'm calling them abnormal not connected calls. That's the unallocated number. So I got 1,154 of those. I definitely want to look into that, see what's going on. And if well, we can go and edit this guy just to show you what I did here, focusing in on the is not call split and get rid of the abandons by is not normal call clearing. It'll give me these counts. And if I do want to look at, how many calls were split, and meaning they, didn't connect, but did the transfer where, they didn't announce the call or didn't wait long enough for the person they were transferred to answer the call to to let them know what was the call about. Maybe that's something in your organization. You know, you want all transfers to be, you know, hey Joe, I got this guy for you, or something like that. So these would be the calls you want to focus on. So on my search set, I'm focused on only include not connected calls here, and terminated cause code is call split, originating cause. Remember, both of them were call split in the originating and terminating cause code, and X being our wild card for those that don't know that. So there's 37 calls that didn't get announced on the transfer. Whether that's a concern to you, you know, there's a way to isolate those. So what other call scenario types you can use the call scenario stats for are calls to your hunt groups. This particular hunt group 77280 looks pretty good because I had 61 calls come in. They all got connected. 52 of them were answered, 9 went to voicemail, and because they all got connected, none were not connected, and none were abandoned. That's pretty good stats there for a hunt group. You can look at stats for your department for these call scenarios. You know, how many calls are coming into my different departments and what's happening with them. Here I added percentages. So connected call percentage, it's easier to look at percentages than counts because you got to compare counts with your total. So, you know, I'm looking pretty good here. You know, not connected calls. I may want to look at this accounting department, which has almost 30% not connected. 5 abandoned, so you know, 5 out of 7. I think I've got abandoned, yeah, abandoned percentage. So 30% of the calls were abandoned. I may want to look into that. So I did create another widget just for accounting department. So I'm looking at my accounting department, summarizing by each person. Maybe I've got a specific person I need to talk to that's not taking the calls. You know, if we look at Carol Kane here, she's got 50% abandoned. That could be a problem. And, you know, Nancy's not too far behind her with 33. So is it a staffing issue? Are they taking too many calls and don't have time to answer them, so they're going abandoned? Or is it just that they're not answering calls? So a good way to keep track of, you know, your departments, your individuals in each department. You know, we could quickly make a copy of this and look at, I think it was our duck sales was next on the list as far as abandoned. So go in here, just do a quick edit on this. Duck sales and get rid of accounting and add duck sales. Quick way of making another widget, basically showing the same thing but with a different department. All right. I believe that's all I have, Brian. Did we get any questions that came in?
Yeah, we do have a couple, and just a reminder: if you do have a question out there, just please put it in the Q&A panel in the lower right corner of your screen. Yeah, we do have 2 questions. First one is from Mark. He says, "Can you explain the difference between the no error and normal call clearing, originating and terminating cause codes?" That's a great question, and we get that a lot.
Yep. Yeah, the no error, like I said, you're usually going to see that somewhere, either originating or terminating. What we focus on is
Sorry, you might want to repeat that last part, Jim. You kind of faded out there a bit.
oh, sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, the no error, just basically that we didn't see an error on that. You're probably always going to see no error in one of them. The normal call clearing is kind of telling us which end of the call hung up. So normal call clearing here on the terminating side means the final call party hung up the call first or disconnected the call. If it's on normal call clearing is on the originating cause code side, then the caller or the calling party hung up the call first. So it kind of normal call clearing depends on where it's at and which party disconnected the call first.
Exactly.
That answers that question.
Yeah, I believe so. And next question from Nashket. Is there a report or tag that provides us detail on who the party is at the end of the call? Well, I think you just answered that. Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so whichever party has normal call clearing will always be the one who terminated the call. So if it's terminating device or extension or whatever is normal call clearing, that's going to be the agent that hung up. If it's the originating or calling party that hung up first, they're going to have normal call clearing on the originating side. So that will always just flip depending on who hung up the call first.
Yep.
All right. I don't see any other questions coming in, so I think we're good there. I'm going to go ahead and take back control. And thank you very much again. Did an excellent job, Jim. Thank you very much. I like those dashboards. You did a good job on those dashboards. Those look pretty cool. Those abnormal call terminations and everything. Let me see. Let me make myself presenter again.
Not as good as Matt's dashboards, but
yeah. Matt kind of is the dashboard master. So let's see. Okay, let me share my screen again. All right, and now we've arrived at the moment you're all waiting for. The gift card winner. And congratulations, Joshua Caldwell. You are the winner this week. Your account manager will be reaching out to you shortly with your $50 Amazon gift card. Thanks for attending. Tune in next week. You'll always have a chance to be the lucky winner next time if you weren't this time. Our next session is going to be on February 1st, and we're going to be discussing the new features available in Variphy 13.1, which was just released last week. So that'll be next week, same day, same time as usual. That's going to be hosted by John Delin and paneled by Victor Verba, who we affectionately refer to as CDR Jesus because he's a miracle worker with these reports. So tune in for that, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks again, everybody, for attending, and have a good day.
Thanks all.